I wrote this story on it, and he read it and he looked at me and he said, "You're a writer." And that stuck.
Welcome to Writers Uncorked, the podcast where we uncork the truth about the writer's life. We're your hosts, best-selling authors Jenna and Michele Scott, and we're here to bring you the no BS chats you've been craving.
Get ready to raise a glass to the real, unfiltered world of writers. This is Writers Uncorked.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Writers Uncorked. We are going to be talking about today following your calling if you want to become a writer. And I thought to start it off, how about sharing our own personal journeys of like following our calling to become a writer? So what made you become a writer, Michele?
Well, probably a few people have heard this story, but from the time I was a kid, I wanted to be a writer. I don't think I had a choice but to be a writer, right? So, and I was fortunate to have a parent, a dad, who really believed in my dream and my ability, and told me as a little girl, I was probably 9 or 10 years old. I handed him a story I'd written on a legal yellow pad, which is funny because I still I take notes on these all day long.
I have not seen one of those images.
Yeah, we bought like bulk, like, right. And I wrote this story on it, and he read it and he looked at me and he said, "You're a writer." And that stuck, right? So, and I loved books. I was the geeky little girl that just read at recess. I didn't play. I just would read Nancy Drew books, Black Stallion, but like any book I could get my hands on. And so yeah, there was just becoming a writer. There wasn't anything else that I was probably going to be.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, yeah, that did just become natural. And that is a natural thing of how that progressed. And my story is a little bit different in the fact that I knew, like, through primary school, I really struggled with reading and pronunciation. And like I had to go see this speech lady. I remember going into her little office and having to like read out and sound out words because I would sound them out and think that there's like a different word, the way I would like pronounce them. And I still struggle today with like some words, how I pronounce them. It's funny when you read it, you're like, oh, this is what this word is, but it's completely not. And yeah, I really struggled with like reading and connecting with that. And it wasn't until I got into high school, I don't know what you call it in America. It's still high school, but like, that year 7 after you primary school into that,
Oh,
into
junior
that.
high. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
junior high.
yeah. Yeah, we just call it like high, like we don't have it. We're just like, oh yeah, you're in high school, year, whatever. And then it's like up from that. But yeah, I got into reading, and my first book I ever read was Charlotte's Web. And I read it from like cover to finish, like, because some of the other books I was just like, I'd read a little bit and then like just not be into it. And then that's when I really found my love for reading. And mine started more so with journaling. Like journaling's always been a real connector point to myself. And it really helped me, especially during the years of like from 14 to even now, like from age 14. I used journaling as a way to express myself and a way to connect to myself when I was going through really hard times as a teenager and really hard times with like friendships, finding yourself. Like it's some of the hardest years of your life to really find, who you are, and, following people and doing silly things to fit in. And like, yeah, I struggled a lot with, yeah, connecting to myself and finding out who I was. And I use my journaling and that type of writing as a way to connect and express and really think through things of, when you do journal, you really get to the bottom of things and you figure out, about situations and your feelings, and you just express yourself in that way. And then it developed from there into, after high school, going into my early 20s is when I sort of got into the story element of it and the writing, and I was reading a lot of books and I got into all the romance, and I loved the stories. And then I really got into, yeah, storytelling, and I had a story that I wanted to write that was a fantasy romance, and it was all about like crystals and like finding these three crystals and a princess and all that fairy tale stuff. And I really got into it and started writing, and yeah, I just found myself through that expressive writing. It's always been about that expressive writing for me, to really connect with myself and to really create characters and that imagination. And I love it so much. Like it's that therapy. It's a part of therapy for me. And do you feel that way too? Like it's just this
Sure.
expressive in that? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of journaling. I think we talked about even character journals, like journals for
Yeah.
my character, right? It's definitely a way to express. And I was a pretty shy kid, so writing was definitely an outlet for me. And and then I mean, I think we've talked about my publishing journey as far as how I became a published author on previous podcasts, so I won't rehash that, but it definitely is a way of it is can be very, very therapeutic.
Yeah.
In fact, I was thinking about this earlier as I look back at some of um my older works and even what I'm currently writing. Somehow, some way, particularly traumatic events that I've had will weave their way into my stories. Even if they're not the same, I don't want to sound too woo-woo for everybody, but it's the energetic of it that gets expressed. So every experience that I've personally had in life somehow filters through into the writing.
Yeah, I feel that too, and all the stuff that, yeah, I've been through too in my short life. Like I feel,
You're
yeah,
a
you like,
baby.
yeah, but I feel like I've lived 1,000 lives. Isn't that funny when you do feel, and I really connect, like, I don't know if I have an old soul or like something, but I really feel like I've been and lived so much. It's just this weird feeling of like, and I connect with so many different age groups, like, and just have way better connection with just all walks of life, like not connecting with your same age and your same group, which is interesting.
I think it's extremely important for writers to have that openness and willingness. I think that's important for all human beings to have that openness and willingness to make those connections outside of what they intrinsically know or gravitate toward. But um, particularly like writers have to be good observers.
Yeah.
So, and we tend to be introverts a lot of times, so it can be difficult, right? But observation, whether it's in human behavior or just like I can look outside and see the different colors of green in the bushes and trees versus the color of my shirt versus, right? And like, how am I going to adequately express that on the page so that you, as the reader, actually feel like you can see a vision? Now, it may not be the same vision of myself, but I want you to feel the crispness of a leaf on a tree. I want to be that clear so
Mm.
that it feels that real, like you're there looking at the trees outside, right?
Yeah,
So
to feel that. And I feel like I'm very empathetic. Like I feel so many people's emotions. It's quite a scary thing. Like I went to a book signing on Sunday, which was a few days ago. And you feel like this event was really, really good, like well organized. It was very small and intimate, but it takes a lot for some of the readers to, and write, like, and us as authors to put yourself out there and go to an event where there's a lot of people, there's a lot of crowds, and it's all a bit overwhelming. But yeah, like I have felt that so much with like certain people, and you try your best to make them feel comfortable or like that it's okay, because I feel it too. Like I needed like a fidget, and I've got a fidget toy now, but I need that to sort of like when people are walking past and what, looking at your books and you thinking, oh, what are they thinking of that? Or like, and it like spirals from that. But yeah, I think a lot of authors do have that. They're very, yeah, as you said, observant of like what's going on around them and what people are thinking. Like, do you ever get that where you're like watching like people eat at a restaurant and like they're in this their own conversation, and like you just find yourself watching them in a creep. It's not creepy, but it feel when you do say it, but it's just a natural. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, going back to like what you were saying about being empathic, I think that is something that a lot of writers, artistic creatives have. And it is, look, we've talked about it before. It's a known that everything is it's energy, where it's all
Yeah.
energy, right? And so whether it's on a spiritual plane or a physical or whatever, it's all energetics. And you can walk into a room, you've probably done this, and feel like, oh, that person really doesn't like me. Like you can feel the vibe, right?
Yeah.
Or oh, that
It's
person's
just
checking
all
me
it's
out.
just off, and it's just like, oh,
Just off, right? And so
yeah.
so you have to be a little bit protective of that. That's your space. And
Yeah.
and you have to be a little bit protective of that, because I think a lot of people, they want good things for you and for themselves, and then a lot of people don't. So you don't know what's what. So you got to tune into that, but you also got to get it off of you, right? Like, and when you're in crowd, when you're in a group of people as an author and you're signing books, I mean, I've had situations where I'm like sweating, my back sweating, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I hope nobody notices. But I think I've learned, you get a little bit older in all of this. Like I'm in my mid 50s, and you get a little bit older and you kind of stop really caring what people think so much,
I
right?
think the only thing that you should care about and listen to is what you think of yourself. And
Yeah.
this is huge for me now to connect, like to like I always overanalyze like, oh, what somebody said or what they did, like their actions. And then I'm like, why should I sit here and worry myself sick and like feel just this anger or whatever it might be? I'm quick to like acknowledge that and be like, okay, it's all right to feel this emotion, but then to like only what I think of myself, and if I love myself, if I'm feeling a real good connection to myself and working through, like this isn't an easy thing to work through. Like you spend a lot of time, and I'm grateful that I have realized this at a young age to pick up on that and really not let it affect me in a way that will spiral me for days or weeks or whatever. Like it's that mindset element and that connection to yourself and the energy. Like, yeah, it's big.
Well, it is, because human beings are quick to judge and quick to critique,
Yeah,
unfortunately. And usually when you go to judgment or criticism, my suggestion is you look within as to, why am I so critical of others? Why am I so
yeah,
judgmental? Why am I so negative? There are going to be people out there who probably see this, listen to this, and think we're full of shit and we're this and we're that and whatever. I don't really care. And it's
yeah.
the same,
I don't give a
but
shit.
but I can tell you, as I started out as an author with publishing books, there wasn't a review I didn't read, right? And there were times I'd walk away and just be like heartbroken, like, what, they didn't like my book, right?
Yeah,
I've come to the realization, I'm not the right, that's just, I don't write the book that they gravitate to. That's fine. Not everybody's gonna like it. But
yeah,
I've got like, the majority do. Most of my books have over a 4.0 or 4.5 rating, 4.2, whatever. I don't even like, but it's like, if you give me a 1 or you give me a 0, whatever, it just wasn't meant for you.
yeah,
It's like, I also have a big belief in, don't, especially as a writer, and I think I've said this before, don't go out and critique other writers' work. Don't write reviews. Don't. Good, bad, nothing. Neutral, don't. You know why? Because that book will actually fit for somebody else and somebody else will enjoy it. Just because you
yeah.
didn't doesn't. right? And I don't think, in all fairness, look, somebody put their heart and soul and their time and probably some money even into it. And for people to come and bash like what you've written, it's like, you know what? Go read something else. Put it down.
Yeah.
Don't watch it. Social media, don't watch it. Netflix, don't watch, turn it off. My book, throw it against the wall. You hate it. I've done that with books, right? But I
Yeah.
certainly didn't go on and say this is terrible, right? Because I know what a writer, and you know what a writer puts into their work.
Mm.
And it means, typically means something to them.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
exactly. So
you know,
I think the point, so to start with, like, yeah, following your calling to become a writer, from what we've shared there, like, I think it's a natural thing. Like, it's not a forced thing to become an author or writer because it's cool or trending or whatever it might be. I think it's very much a calling. It's very much a natural thing that will come naturally. And lots of people have, different ways that they have, yeah, journeyed through becoming an author. And every one of those ways is completely fine. And it's just following those nudges. And if it feels like a natural thing, then follow those breadcrumbs to start and just write. I think, like, just get it out, start writing. You might never publish it. You might really like the form of journal writing and you'll just do writing and express yourself that way. Or you might have a story that you want to tell and then it develops into something bigger and then you publish it, and that type of journey. But I think it's a natural, not a forced talent
oh,
or skill. Yeah.
I think it's I have a lot of faith, my own particular spiritual beliefs. I think it's a God-given talent.
Yeah.
You're talking about natural ability. Yes, it's a natural ability. It's a God-given talent. I worked with mentored a young woman yesterday, 16 years old. I read her first paragraph and I looked at her and I said, you have an obligation
Yeah.
because you are gifted. You have an obligation now to be this writer that you're telling me you want to be. Like
Yeah.
you don't get out of this, right? It's like my daughter's an equestrian, and she one of my daughters, she has moments where she's like, I can't do this, I'm suck, I'm this, I'm that. So I said to her, and I would say to anybody, same with the writing, because you go through this a lot as a writer, like, this is crap, like, I can't even believe it, like, what am I writing here, right? And you have to actually then at that moment, and I said to her, I go, let me ask you something. Do you love what you do? Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I go, okay. I go, are you miserable? No. I go, so you made a mistake today competing? Yeah. I go, and it was a dumb mistake, right? Yeah. I go, okay, but you don't hate what you do, right? And she goes, no. And I go, so you don't get off that easy until you can tell me that you don't love doing this, you hate doing this, I won't take I can't do it because I don't believe that. And it's the same for anybody who is like, if this girl who just told me yesterday, this young woman tells me, if she told me, because she flat out said, I want to be an author, I want to be a writer, I want to finish, I want to do these books. I'm like, well, then I won't let you off easy. Like, because this will get hard. This will
Yeah.
get hard. There will
Yeah.
be times you can't figure out a scene, or you realize that, oh my gosh, I have 3 characters that really I need to delete because they don't move the story at all, right? And at first, when you start out with writing, and you're right, just write, just write. But then, and don't edit yourself at that point. But there will come a time where you look at the prose and you go, this is pretty writing, or I like it, but does it move my story forward? And that's when you become discerning as a writer, and that comes as you learn the craft more and more, and you never ever, I think you would agree with this, stop learning the craft.
Oh,
There's
no.
always I'm always getting educated,
And
always
that's what
learning from.
every book that you write is better than the last one, because it's craft. Like, it's the same with art. Like, if you're an artist and your very first painting, and if you look down the track, like a year, 2 years later, 10 years later, and what you're doing now, there will be a real big difference in what the first one looked like, your first draft, compared to, like, yeah, years down the track of what you're writing now, because we constantly get better and we learn. And yeah, it's a hard industry. Like it is very challenging, not only in the writing sense, but marketing as well. Like, yeah, it's constantly changing. And I'm seeing now more than ever before so many more people, like authors in the community, not writing anymore because it's just too much for them. It's overwhelming. It's keeping up with all of the different trends and the fast moving space and internet that we are in at the moment. And it's a lot. But I find what always brings me back is that piece you were talking about before, that I love getting up every single morning and jumping into my work, and I love talking about it with people like you and, people in my everyday life. Like, that's when I know that it's my passion, it's my calling, it's what the universe put here for me to continue to do, when it's that joyfulness and I'm just in this vortex of just doing it, like without even having to tell a million people, like just doing it, You just, it's
And
like
it flows.
walking. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't love marketing. I don't
yeah,
love social media. I don't love um I don't love what we have to do to sell books anymore.
yeah,
I think we're in a totally different time than when I first became a published author. And that you still had to do a lot of your, I mean, it was different. My time on marketing during those years, and this is early 2000s, was spent responding to emails that I would get, which was
yeah,
a joy, right? I would get emails and I would write my readers back, and it was a joy. And now there's an expectation almost of like, oh, this author, I want to know their life. I want to know what they eat. I don't personally give a shit, and I don't really get that mentality, but that is what it is now. And I don't want to do that, So I've kind of, like, you and I have had this discussion around my writing, and I've just actually gone full back into writing, and I'm just going to let other people handle those pieces.
yeah.
And because
Yeah. Keep
my
going.
time is best spent as a writer, as a creator, hopefully creating something that people love and enjoy. Hopefully that's what I do, and then it reaches those readers. And if I don't, I hope at least I enjoy it, right? So, you
Yeah. And to come at it from a different perspective on marketing, what I'm finding now, I use Instagram a lot to do videos and speak at, like, even like just doing, I've been on Instagram a while. TikTok, I go in and out, and I'm back on TikTok literally the last week. I opened it after, I reckon it was a year or 8 months, like just something ridiculous. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to start this series where it's like, okay, day one of writing updates from a fantasy romance author. And then I literally say, okay, today I worked on self edits, or I'm at this stage. This is what's happening. It's a minute and a half. And that's a way that I find that I can express myself creatively in talking, because I can talk about, like, us talking on this. I find that quite natural. And all I have to do is upload it, edit, like put in some text. The editing doesn't take that long, and put it out there. And I'm finding that I'm creating a lot of like connection with the readers that are commenting, and creating that connection point there. And I do think book signings for me as well create a really like deep connection with readers. Like, I will find, especially local ones here in Australia, the same people come to literally every single one. Like, they'll travel from Melbourne to Queensland, which is like a 2 hour flight, to Sydney, which is like around a 2 hour flight from Melbourne. And like, they'll travel around the whole of Australia to all of these events, and you build that connection. And if they've read one thing, they'll read another thing, and it's about that connection. And that's what lights me up too, to be able to not only write, which I absolutely love, but to connect that connection point to the readers and something more. And they're like your people, like they're, yeah.
Yeah, that I think that connection to your readership community is really important.
Mm,
And I feel like I had those pieces in earlier in my career. And well, I'll just be really honest here. I went through a kind of a ugly divorce back in a long time ago, 2015, 16. Yeah. And uh, during that time, I lost a lot of motivation to write for various reasons because I felt very attacked at some of the things trying to be taken from me out of my writing. And so I actually didn't write for like 3 years, and you know this. And then I had once I was over that and through that period of time, I started writing again. Um, and so many things had changed. And I think I still probably have a community out there who really enjoys what I write and loves what I write, and I know I do because I get the emails
yeah,
still. But it has been a harder, it has been harder to almost reinvent yourself in a
yeah,
way
yeah,
than what it was I feel like if I was just starting out, maybe, but I'm not
yeah.
sure. I did have a readership and those people are picking up books. The hard part is like keeping up with it. It's like
Ah, yeah,
you gotta like produce. And that's not so easy. Writing a book is like it's like putting together, a 3,000 piece puzzle. I mean, really, it's like a brain, especially, well, I think any writing, I'm not going to put anything in a box, but like mysteries and thrillers, like you're really solving cases, you're solving things. But not only are you solving them, you had to create it in the first place,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a template, right? Like every plot, like I was telling this girl yesterday, every plot essentially has been done, right? It's
Oh,
whether
yeah.
it's
We all follow the same. Yeah,
right, but it's all your perspective, your characters, your story, and how are
yeah,
you gonna tell it, right?
yeah. And that can
So
only come from you, the way you develop your characters. It's not the character development's not a copy and paste formula, I find. Like, yeah, you're gonna have characters with the same maybe personality trait, maybe certain things that will overlap, but they're never going to be exactly the same because we're not the same people who create those and how they act and how they act, how they are emotionally, what they feel, what they like, all of that stuff that you put onto the page. It's going to be unique in that
yep.
way. Yeah. From yeah. So I think to end the episode, I think really if you want to become a writer, you got to follow your calling. Do not force it. If you're forcing it, to be completely honest, maybe it's not the right path. Maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe you're not meant to be a writer. And that's just we're
That's
not all
right.
meant to be vets. We're not all meant to be doctors. We're not all meant to be whatever it is. Like, I think it's a very niche calling, and whatever way it does present itself to you is the way that it's meant to work in that way.
Right. Well, being a writer, right, from the beginning of time has always kind of been a romantic idea, right?
Yeah.
And a starving artist and all of these pieces, right? So there's something attractive about that. And then as time has moved on, and now we have like self-publishing and indie publishing, and you hear about, and even before that, even with traditional publishing, you hear about the one person who like, makes 8 figures or whatever and gets like a 3 movie deal and right, and all this stuff, right, and they've only been writing for 3 years, right? We've heard
Yeah.
these.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
handful, maybe a handful of these stories. If you're doing it because you think you're going to be one of the handful, go do something else.
Yeah, it's not going to work. You're not going to connect. Yeah, it's
Your intention's way off base. It's just
you
that's not
might you may randomly as shit like just random find success, but it's not going to last if you don't have that passion and that drive for it. It's going to slowly dwindle into nothing and evaporate into that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Because if you have that going into it, right, that is based, and there's a place for ego and everything, but that is really based on your ego. And this is not a space for anybody. Because if you're a writer, you, like we talked about, you will get critiqued and that will take you out. Like people can say some really mean things. I've been told I'm dumber than a fifth grader. I've been like this, I'm that. I'm like, no. Don't judge. Don't judge me. Judge my writing. Like, okay, I guess you didn't like it. Fine.
yeah,
But
yes.
that the point is if you're doing it with the intention that I'm going to be the next Colleen Hoover or E.L. James or Stephen King or whatever, right? It's like, don't do it for that reason
Yeah,
because it's
you
your,
can have goals to get to that, but the passion will drive you to reach those goals if you do have the passion to begin with. If you don't and you're just following a pipe dream because it's a 10-step formula to become a best-selling author, yeah, red flag.
big time.
Red flag. But yeah, I think follow your passion. Yeah, if you are being called to become a writer, every person that you speak to, and I get this, people in my life, it's like, oh yeah, I want to write a book one day, but they never will if it's not a passion and it's not meant to be for them. It won't happen. So yeah, if you do have the passion, you do have the drive, start writing. Like it is a very
Right.
rewarding career if you are passionate about it and you really want to write a book and yeah, like it is a very rewarding career to yourself and the connections that you make. And it's an amazing community. Like, yeah, it's a beautiful space. And if you do have that drive and that calling, then yeah, go for it.
And it's fun. It's fun just to
Yes.
write. To write it should be fun. If it's not fun, then don't do it,
Yeah.
And yeah, but if it's something that you're called to do and you enjoy it and you feel it's a purpose for you, then absolutely dive in. And if like you said, honestly, if I had a dime for everybody who said I'm going to write a book, I'd be like, I'll probably have $1 million in the bank. Like, I mean, that's an exaggeration, but a lot. Okay, then do it. Don't talk about it. Do
Yeah.
it. I talked, like I said, this girl yesterday. I said, do you write? How often do you write? I write every day. This is a girl who's going into her junior year of high school. I write every day. I said, that's wonderful. Sports, high school, whatever she's got going on, social activities. I said, well, how long do you write for? I write like an hour every day. I write 5 pages every day. That's a writer. I
Yeah.
looked at her, I'm like, that's a writer. You're a writer.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, we will leave it at that because that's
Yeah.
very, very motivating. And if you are feeling the calling, let us know in the comments. Yeah, if you are wanting to write a book and what it's about, share your journey with us. If you already are a published author, share your journey of where you started. And yeah, we hope you found this very inspiring, and we hope to see a lot more authors out there if that's your calling.